Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Carey, so pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We have a mutual friend in Alejandro Reyes who introduced us, but it's been quite the journey for you over the last little while on YouTube and doing some incredible stuff. Give us a thumbnail. You're a professional YouTuber, and you're not 14, which is incredible, right?
That's true. That is, I would say YouTube is kind of my full-time job. Another way I put it is I run a media company, a media education company that helps people learn social media and online video. And that's really been an evolution. But Carey, it starts all the way back in 2003 when I started volunteering at my youth ministry an hour north of Seattle, small church. And my youth pastor handed me a video camera and some video editing software, Adobe Premiere Pro. And he said, start making video announcements for youth group on Wednesday nights. And so he just pushed it on me, like a leader. He was like, he saw something in me. He's like, hey, start doing this. And I'll tell you what, your first videos are going to be your worst videos because those first couple years, man, they were just terrible. But what was so cool about that was, today in social media and a lot of leaders listening probably are understanding, man, I got to be pumping out content to just get the word out about my church, my business, whatever it is. But I was getting disciplined. This was before social media started. 2003, right. I had to do weekly videos, and every week I had to come up with something, shoot it, get it edited. And we recorded it on DV tapes, and we would capture it minute for minute into the editing software. Then we'd capture it back onto the mini DV tape. And I know there's probably some of the older leaders listening, myself included. We would put it in a VHS converter and play it in a VCR Wednesday nights for youth group. Like hit play on the VCR, and then it play the announcements. But that's really where it started. And
so this is pre-Facebook, literally. Wasn't Facebook 04?
I think YouTube started in 2005. Facebook was public by 2007. So it might have started early when it was just for just for the students. And so, that was a huge kind of advantage. It was a God setup to be doing that. And eventually the senior pastor said, hey, can you do video announcements on the weekends as well? And as a volunteer now, I did a video on Wednesday and a video on Sunday. Every week, that's 104 videos a year. I do a few extra testimonial videos and story videos as well. But I was really cutting my teeth and learning, I think, one of the new school disciplines that we need to know as leaders. If not us, we need to have the vision for team around us to be building stuff. And that is consistent content.
How old were you when that happened?
21, I went to Bible College, Prairie Bible Institute, Alberta, Canada. That's a whole story for itself.
No way.
Small town.
Okay, you got a Canadian connection. Get out at Prairie.
That's right. And a lot of my family members went up there, and a few of them are missionaries. So that's how it was on my radar. So I just went up to do a certificate in Bible. And once I completed that year, I came back home and got involved in an internship in kind of like a local ministry school. So along with my youth ministry, it was called Soma Northwest, School of Ministry Arts Northwest, where you'd get a DMA, a degree in ministry arts. And it was all internship, youth ministry, hustling to pay the bills, waiting tables at Red Robin, while I was learning all of that and doing ministry.
But then you actually were in ministry for a little while. You were a campus pastor at one point, right, of a large church?
Yeah, for years. So during that church, I was in ministry and I was serving and I was trying to pay the bills. So I was doing multiple things. And then I was always started to work on like video as a side hustle. In 2010, I started a business called Clear Vision Media. Because I'm self-taught. I learned all the video skills in school. So then people in the church were like, can you shoot my wedding? And then eventually I started working for small businesses and then some different companies. And so that was kind of one foot in those waters. But eventually through YouTube, I actually started working with YouTubers. I started to, as clients, some of that were already sort of getting famous, I would shoot some videos for them, do some video production for them. They're hiring me out. And one of those trips brought me to Las Vegas. And I was able to bring my wife just so she can enjoy the trip as well. We shot some content with a local generosity water event and some YouTubers. And then I visited a church on Sunday, which led to us eventually moving here and joining staff at that church. And years later, I became a campus pastor. So I was the director of communications. I was doing marketing. Eventually, a door opened to be in a leadership role as far as being a campus pastor. Did that for a year and a half. And at the end of that season, or as I was transitioning, the lead pastor, Benny Perez, sat me down. He said, how are you feeling? How do you feel about, what's happened so far at the church? I go, Pastor Benny, I kind of feel like Michael Jordan playing baseball. And as a sports guy himself, you could have thought that was like a prophecy. He was like, "Oh man, that struck true." He's like, "I really feel that." Like, I learned in that campus pastor role, I've never grown more as a leader, but I had greater clarity than ever before that God had really put me in this grace zone of being deeply passionate about social media, outreach, modern marketing, and the power of leveraging these online platforms like YouTube to make a massive difference and a massive impact. And really, I view YouTube and social media as a mission field. I wrote a book during that time called YouTube for Churches. And so anyways, that was sort of the trigger event that moved us into a transition of about a year of more ministry, kind of in a freelance capacity, helping that church and that movement with some social media. And then eventually doing what I'm doing today, which our main company is called Think Media. We have a team of about 10 people, and we're purpose-driven entrepreneurs that are deeply passionate about helping other leaders learn how to leverage new technology to make a greater impact with their mission.
Well, it's kind of interesting because there was a period in your life, and we have a lot of leaders listening, including, marketplace leaders and church leaders, and some of them are kind of between assignments right now. And wasn't there a series where you had a number of things just like, yeah, we don't need your services anymore, and that kind of pushed you into what you're doing today? Do you want to tell us about that episode?
Absolutely. I think what can happen is that sometimes when we are maybe in between assignments, or even maybe doing well in our assignment, we have something as leaders that is always on the attack for us, and that is this C word, comfort. You can get comfortable. And that's actually where I was. Once I transitioned out of that campus pastor role, I had 3 main freelance clients, and they were each with some pretty good amount of income. My wife and I, we moved back to Vegas, and we were based in our church, but serving in a freelance capacity and then working for a couple other business owners. And we were in a place where cost of living here was great, paying the bills, comfortable, kind of working on a side hustle, but like this is nice. And it was definitely a comfortable season, but as you mentioned, October 2015, I'll never forget it. Week number 1, bring, I get a phone call. One of those clients calls, says, "Hey, we've hired some people. We're transitioning some things. We got to let you go." Okay, no big deal. It's only 1 out of 3. Week 2, bring, get a call. "Hey, Sean, we've been using you. We're changing directions. We got to let you go." Now, sweat beating down my face. I'm like, okay, well, that's 2 out of 3.
I'm in the book of Job here. Hang on just a second.
Yeah. And I'm like, but at least I got 1. It's like Jerry Maguire, like 1 client. You're like, hey, who's coming with me? But then God is my witness. That 3rd week, bring, get that call, and I got let by, our main income. It was 80 to 90% of our monthly income disappeared in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so, I know Jesus said, "Don't worry," but I still worry sometimes. I was worried. I would be honest. So I'm, that 4th week, I'm worried. I'm talking about it with my wife. We're thinking through this, but get wisdom. Always like plans succeed for a multitude of counsel. So I called up a mentor of mine, David Goldstein, and said, "Hey, I'm worried about this. What do you think?" And he goes, "You know what? I'm not worried." Now, as a side note, David is been independently kind of successful in business, has built, complete leverage, and is a big kingdom giver. So he's like, "I'm not worried." And I'm thinking, I'm offended now. David, I know you're not worried, but I also know that you never cut checks for my rent. And so I get it, but I kind of joke because I'm glad he said that. He goes, "No, I'm not worried because I feel like as an entrepreneur that I know that you're called to be, at some point you need to jump off the cliff. But in this case, God just kicked you off. Now you have no choice. Like you just got, it's like sink or swim because all the clients are gone. I think what you need to do is go all in this new world reality, meaning not like client work, not agency work, but all in making money online, producing content, serving people. And that's what we did. And in 2 months from finally, for the first time in my life, it was the power of focus. There's a good book called Essentialism. It was like, man, this thing's got to work. And I just went all in. And so the nice thing about that is one of the ways we monetize is affiliate marketing, which is simply when we recommend a product to somebody. And if they purchase it, we get a percentage of the commission. As a tech YouTuber is one of the things I help people with, finding cameras, finding lighting, figuring out how to do video. I was able in those 2 months, November and December now of 2015, to recover all of that income. And by January 1st, 2016, we had replaced all that freelance income. And since then have now scaled into building a 7-figure media company, team members, working with an agency and working with Alejandro and, other people. And it's been amazing what's happened. But it all came to this moment where you either jump off the cliff or maybe God kicks you off the cliff.
How did you know what to focus on? Because you'd been dabbling by that point for a dozen-ish years. So you'd done a lot of stuff. That panic moment happens. How did you mention affiliate marketing? So how did you, I can see a lot of people, they have their day job and it's like, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of YouTube. I'll do some blogging. I'll launch a podcast, whatever. But it's that slow, steady thing that you had been doing. And then all of a sudden you're in the middle of the ocean and no life raft. How did you know what to hang on to? Because that's a pretty quick turnaround, like 2 months. You can measure it in days. That's fast.
It was super fast. And the reason why is because I wasn't just sitting there waiting until that moment happened to start building something. I was building something on the side, really for a rainy day. Right. And if there's one piece of advice I could give to everybody listening is I think that in the world that we're living in, it's always smart to diversify a little bit. I think you have to have your heart wholeheartedly in whatever your assignment is. I like to think of it, though, as like an 80-20, like you're all in what you're doing, meaning you're faithful, you're being faithful, you're seeing it through. But all of us as humans should have some leisure time, should have some rest time. I think it's up to you as the individual to take a portion of that and say, hey, could I chip away at a blog little by little each week? Could I start a podcast? Could I start something else online? And what happened was, you're right, it was very quick, but it also wasn't, because what I had been doing was, what happened here was I had planted the seed years before and I had watered it when I could. And so roots were going down into the soil. So then boom, and it actually had already sprouted up a little bit. But then boom, when I hit the hard season, I already had a root system. I already had proof of concept. And I had tested a lot of things that didn't work. And I had tested some things that did work. And I like to encourage people, if you've made $5 online or $50 online or anywhere for that matter, that's proof of concept. Now your next question is just scaling that. So I was like, wow, I've learned all this stuff now with unbroken focus. If I just, and I'll be honest, I was working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks for those first 2 months because it was as if our life depended on it, because it kind of did. And so I was just all in, but I did know what to do. Why? Because I was testing, experimenting, learning. I was digging my well before I was thirsty. So when that day came, I was prepared to take action, and I had a little bit of momentum to work with. I see too many people fail because they literally let things slow to zero in their life, and then they try to get things going, whereas you could have been nurturing something on the side little by little so that you truly are positioned for a season like that.
For that 60-day turnaround, what was your immediate focal point? Like, what did you do that generated that amount of money that fast? Understanding that you've been nurturing this on the side.
100%. So here's how it works. What I had figured out was a couple facts, and this is a great question. I had figured out that YouTube was a search engine. Right. And that's a profound insight, because that means that people are typing in questions into YouTube looking for answers. Now, we can later on talk about how people are asking questions about God and faith, or how to clean their swimming pool. So this could have relevancy for a business owner or for a church or a leader. But in this case, since we went all the way back to 2003 when I started getting into video and cameras, in 2010, I started a business. I took out a loan and I bought about $10,000 worth of camera gear. And one of the things that I learned, and this is really good advice for freelancers or anybody that does invest in gear or expensive things, recording equipment's a good example. A lot of musicians, a lot of worship leaders could benefit from this. What I realized is I have all this gear. I could just flip a camera on, talk about it online, review it, show how to use it, compare some things. As a user myself, what you're doing is, what do you wish you would have known before you made that terrible purchase and that regret, that thing that didn't work? Or if you were comparing two things. So years before, I had done videos called like Best Camera for YouTube 2015 or 2016. I had done like best lighting, or this lighting versus that lighting, knowing these were the two hot things that people were interested in. So fact number one is YouTube is a search engine. Fact number two was that if you put out strategic videos in front of search terms and they rank in search, they show up on the other side, you can get views while you snooze. You can actually have true leverage, just like smart people invest in real estate, because it creates true leverage. It builds wealth. It can create passive income. it's kind of like video real estate. You put out a video, if it's good and it sits there on the internet, you create it once, but it's viewed the next day and the next day and a month later. And then you do that over and over. So then the next fact was, I was like, how many videos can I possibly do? So when I'm working 60 to 80 hours a week during that time, I was just trying to put out as much volume, keeping the quality high of actual individual videos, because the more videos is the more potential to get a base hit, get some views, get some effectiveness, but maybe get a grand slam and get a really big ranked video that gets hundreds of views, sometimes an hour, Carey. I mean, right now, Think Media is getting around 2,500 views every 60 minutes.
Wow.
Not because I upload new content, but because I have a library of ranked videos. And then the last fact is affiliate marketing. So now if you watch a video, you type something in to search, what is the best camera for YouTube? There I am. And now I'm making some different recommendations. I'm giving you some different pointers. And then I say, and if you want to check any of these out, there's links in the description below. If someone clicks one of those links, the majority is over on Amazon.com, and they go over and purchase that camera, I can get a commission between 4 to 10%. $1,000 camera, 4%, that's $40. $2,000 camera, $80. If I do multiple sales a day, you can start doing the math and seeing how that could compound and stack. And let me just insert one little fact. When someone clicks an Amazon link, the cookie, which just means the tracking code, actually credits anything that person purchases for up to 24 hours.
Yeah.
So what I also learned about affiliate marketing was that when I had just volume in the world, like if I'm talking about tech, and for a while I did these videos like Christmas gift ideas and a couple different gift ideas videos, very intentional of like, okay, someone's they're looking for information on the internet, but they need a bridge. Here's a way to put it. I think of myself as a Best Buy salesman, except Best Buy salesmen, they don't get commission, they just get hourly. I don't get hourly.
Yeah.
No one's paying me, but I just get commission. And I like to think that I'm also the Best Buy salesman that everyone wished they ran into. Deeply knowledgeable.
Looking
deeply
for a gift for my husband or my son.
Yeah.
What do I get them?
Adding real true value. And so YouTube is a search engine. I put out as much volume as I could. And by the way, it was good timing when all my clients fired me, because Black Friday, Cyber Monday, these are what we call tent poles. They're high search volume, high shopping volume. And so I just put out as much content as I could. And what I've learned is that about 50% of the content I recommend is what's purchased. But the other 50% is someone watched one of my videos and was like, cool, well, I'm not going to buy a camera for a year, but I'm going to get all of my husband's Christmas shopping done. So then I start looking in and I'm selling watches and like books and weird stuff I've never recommended.
Yeah. Socks. Getting commissions.
Exactly.
Wow. Now, how do you, just so I know, is that all through Amazon, or are you contacting Sony and Nikon and Canon going, hey, can I get affiliate commission, or is that just 100% Amazon affiliates?
So the biggest one, and that I like to recommend, is Amazon for that very reason, because they have everything, but they also have everything else. So if you just put volume of clicks, whether you have a blog or a podcast, someone... Again, a lot of people could do this. This is practical in your world. It's just books. It's not going to be like huge commissions, but you might say 5 books every leader should read. Your audience is like, well, thank you so much for serving these up. I want to buy all 5, but they also might buy other 2 books they wanted to get. So Amazon's great because of that everything store nature of it. I don't do affiliate programs really through any of those individual websites, Canon or Sony, because they're typically not as good or even as trusted. People want to use Amazon because they're already set up there. They already have Prime. The other one is B&H Photo. But in our brand, in our company now, there's about 20 different affiliate programs we've done. We've done stuff in the health space, health and fitness, whether that's supplements or nutrition. That is a major one. That's a big profitable niche, if you will. And we'll do software. So I've got some very profitable ones around software or around a lot of like templates for making video intros or royalty-free music and just a lot of things that are in our niche. And we find out that there's always more affiliate programs. Software we use, it could be Dropbox or hosting for your blog. But truly, there's almost an affiliate program for anything. Sometimes we'll partner with people's events or people's digital courses. And so we today are a part of over 20 different affiliate programs.
Wow. So that's definitely one source of income. I want to pull the camera back a little bit. And thanks for that story. I'm always fascinated in origin stories. So your current company, did you start that out of that? You morphed because you had, what was it, Clear Vision Communication or Clear?
Yeah, Clear Vision Media. This is sort of another rabbit trail, but I think it's fun and serves the audience. Think Media is a YouTube channel that started in 2010, and now it's turned into, I think this is interesting to encourage people that just the evolution of things. And I wish I could look back and say, God showed up with an angel and a scroll, and it was like, here's exactly what's going to happen over the next decade. But actually, if we throw back to 2010 and even 9, we started a YouTube channel called Think International with a really good friend of mine, Jeff Moores. And that was a kind of dive into the YouTube world super early, especially in the church space. That channel is about 12,000 subscribers. And in 2009, we started to do leadership videos. And this was mostly Jeff. He was my youth pastor from 2003. Mm-hmm. So we started a YouTube channel. And then we started to interview church leaders. And so this was something that's pretty common today. But back in those days, we were sort of like the first people kind of doing it. It's still there today. You can see Think International. And so the promise of that channel was a lot of leadership content, conversations with church leaders and faith-based leaders, as well as kind of tips videos around practical leadership. And because we had that channel, as things were evolving, some people would hit me with questions. How'd you produce that video? What camera did you use? What lens did you use? So I thought, well, and by the way, we just made that name up too. We're like, Think is kind of a cool name, international. Let's impact the world. I think international. Okay, cool. It's like, what does it mean? I don't know. I mean, it was called Think International. So then Think Media was the media side. Then it was like, okay, well, let's Think Media. That's what it'll be called. And I started to talk about cameras, and for a while I still do, social media, how to use those channels, because we were distributing all of that content using social, using a blog. In 2010, that was like super early compared, now we're almost 10 years later. And so that is where Think Media started. However, it was sort of just on the back burner. I ignored it for almost 5 years. I would upload here and there, just whenever I had something to share. And it turned out today to be the strongest brand out of all the various experiments I've done. I have about 4 YouTube channels, or 6 total, and only 2 are successful. And insert a little stat I heard once that it applies to church planners and it applies to entrepreneurs, that most people, not most people, the stat was that on average, I don't know where they got this data, and I wish I had the actual source, but it's still pretty encouraging, and I think it'll resonate, was that entrepreneurs are usually successful and they break through on their 2.5 project. So it said that they've had 2.5 projects before they break through. In other words, they've had probably 2 to 3 things fail before they figured out the thing that works. And I just share that to be encouraging, because now I've got these YouTube channels that, like, I wrote the book, YouTube Secrets. Like, how did that come from? Like, where did all the wisdom come from? Same thing that probably everybody listening came from. Not because we're great. It's because we failed so much. Like, we've had whole YouTube channels that have been mistakes, and whole series of content that were like, wow, if I knew this one thing that, or I would have started this differently, or I would have named things differently. And instead of just whipping a name out of a hat, whatever it is, all that wisdom that comes from failure. I heard it put this way, that the master has failed more times than the amateur has even tried.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And so we've just failed a lot, and some of those other projects led to that. So anyways, that's where Think Media came from. But today now, I'd say that it's 3 years old, 4 years old, because the start of the real entrepreneur journey, it was like the seeds were planted, but the start was around 2016, which then it became all in. We now throw a live event. We're trying to have logos and branding. And it's been this really interesting progression that has kind of been like ready, shoot, aim, as opposed to ready, aim, fire. It was like, just jump out, like punch fear in the face, punch perfectionism in the face, press record, hit that publish button, and then be like, okay, what are we doing again? And that's kind of what we've been doing over the last few years, refining our brand, refining our messaging, and kind of leveraging the momentum that has happened, and trying to get greater clarity as we go.
I think it's Winston Churchill who said that success is moving from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. One of my favorite quotes. Yeah, because you almost, we all have this idea that successful people, one day you just woke up and it's like, I'm going to launch Think Media. And suddenly 2,500 people an hour show up after, in the first week. And when that doesn't happen for us, we're like, I quit. and it never works out that way. Okay, I want to focus on video now. And I know this sounds obvious, but video is one of the largest platforms in the world, one of the fastest growing in the world. Again, at the risk of sounding too elemental, because I honestly think, as you and I talked about before we hit record, most churches are way behind on video, even though we do video every week. And most businesses are way behind on video, even though it's exploding. Why is it exploding? Why is video still exploding and expected to explode even more in the future?
Yeah, I think video is king. There's no question about that. Cisco did a study that by 2020, the internet will be 90% video content. Social Media Examiner did a study that video is people's preferred content format of choice. Now you're listening and you might be thinking, well, it's not my preferred content format. That's fine. You might love podcasts and audio. You might prefer to read, but the large majority of people want to consume video content. And I think it's pretty simple, because if a picture speaks 1,000 words, then a video can communicate 1,000,000, because it's moving pictures, and a video done well. And I think what churches really do understand is they're actually a lot of times pretty decent at internal communications as it pertains to video. If they're sharing testimonies and stories of what is happening in the life of the church, if they're capturing baptisms and what people are, that stuff can be so powerful. I think where a lot of churches and leaders and businesses as well are missing out is that external outreach, is that even thinking the strategy is different of what you would put on Facebook and put on Instagram and put on YouTube in as far as video goes to reach new people and impact your community and potentially have new people visit your church, or also to do in-reach on social media, because that's also where your people are. So being able to communicate with them and reach them to bring inspiration, awareness of events and things, and potentially even the deepening of spiritual practice, like reminders, meeting them during the week. At some point, I definitely have to shout out Brady Shearer and Pro Church Tools. I think that a lot of his messaging, it's probably one of the most essential to subscribe to YouTube shows. It's one of my favorite shows, is their 5-day-a-week show. But he talks about Seize the 167. Churches get people for an hour on the weekends, but it's that other 167 hours during the week that we should be asking, what are we doing with pictures, words, audio, and video to maximize all these other days of the week, not just to promote the women's ministry gathering and not just to try to get someone to register for Financial Peace University, but ultimately to potentially inspire spiritual practice, to cause depth and connection, to get people in groups or whatever other objectives we have as leaders.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. So here's my question, because I'm probably a late adopter to video. I'm an audio podcast guy. And one of the reasons, like I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to that, you're listening while you're driving, while you're out for a run, while you're mowing the lawn, whatever you happen to be doing, and it's multitasking. I am incredibly ADD, and I realize this bucks all trends, because, you look at the demographics on YouTube, and the younger you are, the more likely you love video, the whole deal. But how does that work? Why is it exploding so much when video pretty much demands your full focus?
I think it's probably exploding. I love that you said that, but I think there could be one tweak, and that is that some podcasters capture video as well. And I think it's options. I think that's probably the best way to answer your question, is it's just options. We should not try and predetermine what the audience wants. It's Paul saying, become all things to all people. It's meeting people where they are, dressed in the format that they would prefer. Therefore, one of the reasons why I love video, if you can do it, is it's actually the best kind of content to put at the top of the trickle down funnel, if you will. And here's what I mean. If you turn the camera on and also capture the audio, then you can have a video to upload to YouTube. You can have video moving content to have snippets uploaded to Facebook and to Instagram and what we'd call micro content, even on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very hot platform right now with a lot of growth, and that's exploding when it comes to video. And so you can now chop that content up. And like you said, you and many people like you, by all means, audio is massive because it does give us that freedom and that multitask ability. That same audio can still find its way onto those podcasts to meet those people, but you've just unlocked a whole nother channel of somebody that maybe wants to consume it in a different way. And we also now are also really just talking about maybe one form of content, longer form teaching or education, conversation, or leadership content. But I think video has the opportunity to also be much more expansive than that in content formats. Storytelling, even branding would be, showing more than just telling about how to do something or solving a problem, whatever it is. Another guy to shout out that I think church leaders would love is Trey Van Camp. He's a vlogging pastor. He's church planter. He's consistent with a vlog, but he made one of the most creative welcome videos, which was essentially just putting a video on the internet that would walk you through literally what would happen in your church from a first person perspective. Very creatively done. And so that's another format. So that's to say that maybe a lot of theological, leadership, longer form content performs better in audio because people want to be on the treadmill or they want to be moving. But a power question to ask everybody listening right now is, what kinds of visual content should you be creating to further the mission of your organization? Content that is designed to be uploaded on Facebook with, and this is just, if I pause here, one of the best things we can ever do as leaders, and you would agree with this, right? Mm-hmm. Classic book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the habits is begin with the end in mind.
Yep.
Just simply start with the end in mind. What is the purpose and the intent of this piece of content? So we should be asking, what is going to get new people through our doors? That is a different question than what is going to deepen the bond our current members or, church congregation. What kind of content could go out to just deepen the bond with that group of people? That is a different piece of, it's 2 different audiences. One person doesn't even know you exist yet. One person already loves you, but you're just going to a deeper level. That's the lead pastor or someone on the team or whoever uploading a video to say, hey, we just want to send a video out to literally say, we love you, we appreciate you, we care about you. You know what your intent is. You're beginning with the end in mind. I want to deepen the bond. What's another thing? I want people in small groups. What's another thing? As a leader, I want to make money off affiliate marketing so I can actually pay my bills this month. So I had a sniper focus on the intent of the content I was creating during those 2 months. We all need to know that and then work backwards. And then maybe very quickly creative ideas can flow in, because then we could say, oh, well, we could just do this. And now we know, starting with the end in mind, we know what it is we're trying to achieve. And then we reverse engineer the video content to do so.
Interesting. So you're right. You're making me rethink this. And I have read your book. It's a great book. It's a great primer, YouTube Secrets. But I've had people on my team say, why don't you just launch your video camera or video channel? I don't struggle with perfectionism in a lot of areas of my life, but I'm like, oh man, I'm just not ready. I don't have the gear, and yet here we are. While you're talking, I'm thinking I have a video of almost every single of my 250 podcast interviews archived because I do these via video right now. You could argue it's not really set up. I don't have the right lighting. But at the end of the day, are you saying it could be as simple as just throw this video on a YouTube channel and see who shows up?
Well, for not holding back from the sting of what I'm about to say, dare I say, now you saying and luckily you have all the videos, so there's a bright future. But I would argue, this is going to be a strong word, Carey, I love you, that it is irresponsible of you to not have used, because here's why, really, and you being also a great leader and a systems guy, you could systematize a process that you're just leveraging another channel. All of these could also be on YouTube, which is a search engine, which has great SEO and search properties. So just with a solid title, a solid thumbnail, fill out the description of the video, throw some tags in there. Not even doing that, and you still could have more upside than just letting them sit on your computer. But if you did that, that would be optimization at another level. And again, that's why some people could find you there. Some people will find you on iTunes. Some people will find you on Stitcher. And you're just giving people more opportunities. The second level, if I may take it a level further, is that also because you've got all these video snippets, and you could do this without video, is that the highlights of each of your episodes, probably 1 to 3 highlights from each episode, should be cut out. And that is a native upload, meaning it's not a link. It's actually uploaded directly to Facebook, or it's uploaded as a square in my Instagram feed that then educates about the fact a new episode is out. And I know you've seen this, but that becomes another video. And that's why video at the top is amazing, because you could transcribe it and turn it into a blog post. You could put quote cards on visuals around things that happen in this conversation. You could then upload the full-length video to YouTube and the full-length audio to the other platforms. But then you could chop out, you could do 10. You could chop out 1 to 10 micro pieces that are uploaded to LinkedIn, that are uploaded to Facebook, that are uploaded to Instagram. And as you progress in this, some of this could be, I understand, could be kind of overwhelming. You're like, my gosh, because then there is the execution of it all. But as you get comfortable with it, then it's even better, where we share different content, or I'd say you want to be contextual. You'll get more nuanced in how smart your context is. And what I mean for us is that on LinkedIn, we talk much heavier business entrepreneurship language. Wow. On Instagram, it might be more inspirational, lighter, more about the latest cameras and latest tech, because we are reverse engineering who's the audience there, what is the mindset there. And therefore, in this interview, there might be a heavy business piece, and then there might be a heavy, whatever it is. And so now one interview like this, one piece of solo round that you do, could be turned into multiple pieces of content. And I think what we're going to be seeing is the evolution of churches and business leaders in figuring out how to install systems in their workflow to do something like this. And let's just break it down real quick. I'll try to keep it under 60 seconds. Keep going. Business leader or church, they record 1 podcast a week. They then just know what happens next with it. So now that's turned into 30 to 50 pieces of content systematized and distributed for the rest of the week. So therefore, that senior leader or that business owner, they might be on the hook for an hour to record a podcast like this, turn it off, and then let the system take over. What I would say, though, is that you need to be committed, just like we all do, that nothing's as easy as it seems. And that probably doesn't sound easy, that you maybe need to invest a year of your life doing the hard work of establishing the system, of pioneering the pipeline, of educating and training the mindset and the capabilities of the leaders that would support that. But in doing so, coming into 2020, you would be positioned to dominate where a lot of churches and businesses are having trouble catching up with the demands of modern marketing and modern social media.
No, I think that's really good. You know what? It's kind of convicting to hear you say that, because I mean, I've written about abundance thinking versus scarcity thinking, but you hit a really important, finally crystallized for me. My team's going, duh, we've been trying to tell you this for a year. But you know what it is? In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if my audience can listen, why would they want to watch? And I understand that there's a percentage that would, but the point is, and what I realize is so faulty about that thinking is, no, there's a whole bunch of people who will watch, who will never listen. And you're sitting there going, oh, good, traffic's up. Like, we're hitting all-time highs on this podcast, but we're missing a significant chunk of the market. And I just literally got a text from one of my best friends. He's like, why do you never Instagram about your podcast? I'm like, well, I got to hire a team and we're looking for that guy right now. And it's just like, and I take this back to church world. I don't know about the business leaders listening, but, we produce video content 52 Sundays a year. Even if you're a small church now, you got a video cam going, you upload it to your website, and it goes to sit there and die. And you don't chop and slice and take highlights out and put them onto your social. And a lot of churches don't even, we use Vimeo maybe as the player, but you don't bother to upload it to YouTube. And so I hope this is blowing up people's thinking about what we're missing. And again, it is more work for someone else, but it's not like, oh, now I have to preach 30 messages. It's taking the one thing you did and slicing it up on the different channels so it appears, which of course attracts new people, new subscribers, new this, new that, right? All that. Am I getting it right?
You're getting it completely right. And I have a confession. I love that you said, I'm usually not a perfectionist, but when it comes to this video thing, I've hedged a little. I'm actually reverse guilty. I have procrastinated and hedged away from audio solely from podcasting because I've said, oh, well, we could upload some of our videos to a podcast, but I would want to shoot a new intro and I don't have the team yet. I don't have the, and so I talk myself, but that's the thing. There's this whole other side of things where people are like, I want to just be able to, on my platform of choice, I'm in love with Google Play. I'm in love with Stitcher. I'm in love with iTunes. I want you to be on Spotify. Spotify is blowing up right now for podcasting.
Yeah, I'm on Spotify. Thank you.
So it's like
did one thing right.
It's where people are. It is very gospel, is it not? Like it's like
yeah. You go to all the earth, and half the earth is on YouTube right now, and we're missing it in the business world, in the social world. And when I'm thinking through it, like you have a great setup. You got this killer mic, the Shure Retro mic, which is awesome. Beautiful office. This is very easily postable, and maybe this will be my challenge. Like, guys, check out if I had enough nerve to actually put this on YouTube, but maybe this is the launch of my YouTube channel right now with this podcast episode. But looking back, there are some I can't do because I've interviewed, and I won't out the guest, but women with no makeup who are like, this isn't on video, right? I'm like, no, just I do it. And the reason I do video is I'm a better interviewer. I stay engaged. But I'm afraid because I have a terrible resting face. It looks like I'm angry or constipated all the time. And, if I was actually on a TV set, I would be going there. The other thing I've done, and maybe just speak to this for a minute, because I know you write about it in your book, but like my assistant who's 20, we're doing a live shoot next week in Atlanta. He's like, should I hire a video crew? And I'm like, no, that's going to be like $2,500. I'm like, I don't know how much it costs. I just made up a figure, right? Probably too high. I'm like, and then I don't know whether the channel will be ready. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be like a $2,500 solution every time you upload a video, right? Like you can get started with what you have. Do you want to talk about that for a minute and getting started? Because you're doing this with audio. Like I got my pod because I knew radio. I'm like, I can do this thing for $1,000. Now it costs a lot more than that today. I have a staff and everything, but like I got out of the gate for under $1,000. And I knew I could do that on audio. My hesitation has been on video. You race to the market with video with like basically your phone, and just talk about the cost of entry and the barriers to entry and how low that has gotten.
Absolutely. And I think that there was a great quote by Zig Ziglar that said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And the most important thing you can do is start, because your first videos will be your worst videos. And it's important that you practice, but I think it's also important to practice in public. So in answer to your first question, Carey, I think that the phone in most people's pockets is I know the phone in most people's pockets is good enough to start. I know that most of them record 1080p or 4K video, and that you could pull it out, press record. And today, in fact, this could be a challenge for those listening that want to take it up. You hit record on the phone and you say, hey, Sean here, and here's video number 1 for my YouTube channel. My passions are leadership or faith-driven leadership. And so we're going to be talking about this on this channel. I have no idea when it's going to look like, when it's going to upload. Connect with me on social. Some dude on a podcast encouraged me to do this. Turn it off and upload it. Here's the thing. Then you have a video public. You can title it. You can go through the process. And here's what you can also do. First of all, you go, well, what if someone sees it? The best thing that could happen to you is that if that went viral, but chances are actually 0 people are going to see it. That process was more for you more than the public. Because after you get that first video up, I need you to get your next 10 up just to kind of get the cobwebs out of your brain and just to kind of get loose a little bit, practice a little bit. So all you need is your phone, and then you can continue to level up as you go. I heard a preacher that I love early on said that the best way to teach a preacher is to preach a preacher. And that's so true. Like there's no way you're going to be a great communicator. I love learning. I love books. I love courses. I love all that stuff. That's supplementary. But where does that in addition to doing it 500 times and then 1,000 times and doing it 1,500 times, and then that's why that person is great. So the sooner you punch fear in the face and start is the sooner that you can kind of get some momentum going. Step 2 is, I think that there's 3 letters that everybody needs to know when it comes to video, and it's AVL. Audio, video, lighting. Most church leaders would know that too because they got an AVL team. And so before you press record, ask yourself, how good's the audio quality? And what I mean is, am I sitting next to a train station? Am I in 45-mile-per-hour winds? Is there an alarm or siren going off? If you're in a normal office with low ceilings or whatever, and there's not a lot of echo, then the audio is fine right off your phone. Video, well, your video's on your phone. Lighting. Well, if you could sit in front of a window as opposed to in a dark closet, cameras feed off light. And the most expensive camera in the world in a low light situation will not look as good as your phone in a good lighting situation. Mm-hmm. So it could be just in front of a window, but I would recommend leaders listening invest potentially around $100 to get a phone mount and a tripod for your phone, a plug-in lavalier mic that can go in your lightning port or your headphone jack that you could just connect to your shirt, and maybe a softbox light kit that could cost around $75. That's just now you have something you could set up. And so the lighting's good. They can hear you. They can see you. And then it's remembering this, that it's never actually about the production value. Production value matters in the sense of if you can't see the person, hear them, it literally looks like it was shot on a baked potato. Well, that's going to be a distraction. But it's about the content value, not the production value. The reason people listen to your stuff is because you provide unlocks in leadership. You help me go further faster. You help me avoid things I didn't see coming. So it's the content. It's not, your book is not the cardboard and the paper of the pages that I'm investing in. It's actually the content and the wisdom sitting on those pages. So what everybody listening, that's probably the case. They're going to be thought leaders, kind of thoughtpreneurs that are sharing wisdom, information, Bible teaching. So now you're just thinking about these are just mediums. It's not even about YouTube. It's not about YouTube or the camera. That is a meeting place. It's like a synagogue of 2019 to where you have a platform where you could speak into the lives of those listening. And so don't overthink it. Start with your phone, and you could use a pile of shoeboxes or a pile of books, but then subscribe to Think Media, shameless plug right in the middle there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll help you. I'll just help you find a few pieces of tech that'll level up your setup, but then stop worrying about the camera and start thinking about the content.
Right. And then when the audience shows up and a few dollars flow in, you can get that nice camera if you want or hire the crew, but nobody starts that way. I mean, not unless you're totally independently wealthy. Like no one's going to fund this. You just start. How do you get noticed online? What are some of the keys? Because you're right. You know, the reality is most people doing this are going to post that, hey, my name's Carey. This is the start of my YouTube channel. They're going to look next Thursday and there's 3 views and they're going to go, I quit. So how do you get noticed?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think we should just ask, how is it possible to get noticed, period? And I say that kind of joking, but very, very true. Because let's think about it like this. If you wanted to grow your YouTube channel, there's a lot of things you could do that we would know as church leaders. You could print out cards, punch a hole in them, put a rubber band in them, and then have interns run door to door and hang them on people's doorknobs. Yeah, you could. You could do a mailer, right? You could. That's awareness. That's like a picture of you that's like, hey, I'm online right now, come see me, or whatever your messaging is. You could go to local events and network. You could buy a billboard. You could call people one by one on the phone and try to talk them into watching your channel. But I share all that because I think it's important to get into a promotion mentality, is to start thinking, look, and to maybe put the reality of growing anything is hard. It grows by word of mouth. It grows by the quality of what you've put out there. It grows because they saw an ad. So maybe it's advertising. But if I was to think about the best ways to get discovered online, for me, I like to look for leverage. There's a cool book by Shane Snow called Smart Cuts. And the premise is that there's not shortcuts in life, but there are smart cuts in life. The shortest path to your destiny, you're going to have to put in the work. And maybe that's what I'm trying to say. There's no overnight success in this, but there are shorter paths. Here are a few. One is going to be leverage, like YouTube being a search engine. That's why I love YouTube the most, because now you're not just putting out a content that nobody could search and find, and that the only way you could get awareness to it was from somewhere else. You already have an email list. You already have 300 Twitter followers. So if you send a tweet out, they could go find your video. But search is a lever of getting in front of some questions And I've seen, one of the people that are actually part of our community in our course Video Ranking Academy, his name's Justin Coe. He's got a channel called That Christian Vlogger. And so he put out a lot of videos early on about what does God say about X, or best Christian books on whatever. And some of those videos got sucked into the algorithm. They're on the other side of search. So new people find him that did not know him because they type in a search term and they discover his videos. Then they have the option of becoming a fan, a subscriber, or not. Here's another one: collaborations. I mean, chances are right now, like, people are discovering me for the first time. I mean, I'm sure they are. So we're collaborating. So that's an old school way of doing it. Then they might say, all right, well, because I'm interested in that, I'll go check out Sean's channel. The reverse is true. When you launch your YouTube channel with this video, I can send a ton of traffic to it, right? Like, so I could then say, hey, I'm over here. They don't know you, but they know me. And then they're able to get to know you. That's collaborations.
Bingo.
And then social media would be another one. If you are particularly good at another platform, or you've been building your influence on another platform, you're at an advantage because now you can educate your audience at that place that this new thing exists over here. So for a church leader, they could also do things a lot better as well. You already have maybe the attention of your church. How can you educate physically, like on a Sunday, about what people have access to during the week? And then never stop repeating those messages. You're not trying to overdo it. You're just saying, and by the way, if you miss the message, here's where it is. Here's where you can find it. And you're sending traffic to those videos. So that would be using your present influence. You've got an email list. Maybe experiment on your YouTube show for 3 to 6 months until you're comfortable with it. But then eventually you might say, hey, this has launched, and that might be a lot of traffic. And now people know you're good for it. Then eventually you have momentum, because this is what I shared all these things because I want to add as much value to people who are at zero, like goose egg zero. You just got to hustle. You got to have some grit, some tenacity. You might go door to door, and you might go to events, and it's never going to work if you're spammy or overly promotional, but you always do everything with the heart of service. Did you're interested in information like that? I have a great show, weekly, I'm adding value. You might be interested because you truly care, or sharing that direct video with somebody. I remember back when we started Think International, Jeff would message individual leaders to go try to get them to watch our videos, but in a very service-based level. Hey, I know right now you're going through some systems challenges. We just had an interview with a guy because it's one subscriber at a time. How does a church grow? One member at a time. How does a business grow? One customer at a time. And so it's leveraging all the modern tools. And then let me throw in a fourth one there, recapping YouTube as a search engine, collaborations, using your present influence on other social media or your email list. A fourth one is paid traffic. And I think that a lot of leaders across the board, I think it is imperative that everybody listening be embracing digital advertising for whatever it is they're doing. If you're a church planner, I mean, we're a part of a church right now. It's really a move of God here in Vegas. It's crazy. We just had 1 year anniversary. Church is 1,000 people.
Wow.
And the church has embraced Facebook ads. Let me say this, not without criticism.
Right.
I think, because some people are like, well, why would you? And what's powerful is the pastor, as Jabin Chavez, hasn't taken a salary for the church because he is blessed to travel and lead worship and speak. He's one of those guys too. He's gifted at both. You're just like, dude, I want to punch you in the basement. Like, he could just do either. He could just take it either way. Like, but he's amazing guy. So he's even paid the Facebook ads out of his own pocket because of controversy. But even still, I know that will change because people are like, well, should you spend tithe dollars on digital advertising? It was like, well, what's the difference between a billboard,
that and a mailer,
a TV show, which I'm all for TV ministries, no criticism, but dollar for dollar, if you're buying time there versus potentially paying on social, we need to be wise stewards of our resources. And the most effective form of advertising right now is Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google Display Network, depending on what you're doing, YouTube ads, targeting locally. And so that's a major deal. And what I like to say is this, I learned this from Alejandro, is that you don't, though, just want to do paid ads without testing the content first. Some people think, okay, cool, I could buy my way into a popular podcast or YouTube show. That's not true. I think it has to be proven organically. But once a fire has started, paid ads are like gasoline for a fire that's already going. Paid ads aren't going to fix your church. You come in, you got a toxic culture, you got the wrong leaders up front. There's a lot of other things you got to be doing. Oh, like Facebook ads was the secret. No. It's just awareness. That is gasoline to, I think, health of some sort, a fire that's already burning. And then you're able to scale quickly. And I think that is not something most people should be thinking about for even a year or two, because you're in your practice and preparation season. You're dialing in your content. You're proving that it works. It's resonating with your audience. But for some listening right now, it is the exact right time that you need to be exploring investing heavily into digital advertising, because it is the way to scale right now.
Yeah, I think it was David Ogilvy, the old Madison Avenue ad guy, who said, great marketing makes a bad product fail faster, which is true. You got to have a great product. One of the things I found, in terms of organic reach, and it's just so simpler. And again, to quote Zig Ziglar, it's like, if you help enough people get what they want, eventually get what you want. And I found like when I started blogging, which was just over 6 years ago, like your video, I'm like, the litmus test for me, and I didn't have any money for it, I didn't have anything, was just be helpful. Like, this blog is not about you, but if you can help some church leader struggling to break the 200 barrier, or offer some insight about post-Christian culture that's going to help somebody who's starting a church, or a leader who's struggling with team issues, then, if you're the guy who can help, then maybe people will come back, and that can be a ministry. Same thing true on video, like just helpful.
It's true. And I'm glad you added that. I would say that number 5 then, as far as how to actually get noticed, would be sharing. That is, and why would someone share content? Ask this question: is it shareable? And we've all done it. We've all seen the post where someone's on there from Catalyst Conference just dropping fire, and you tag like 3 people. You're like, they need to see this. This was amazing. So that's that idea. And you're totally right. We lead with service, and we lead with real value. And word of mouth will probably forever be the most powerful form of marketing. And so in that first season, you got to generate, because how can you even get in front of one person so they could tell somebody else? So you're really hustling. But that is hopefully what we would achieve. And I've seen that's some of the things we're seeing now, just to encourage people. It's definitely happened throughout the years, but I'm seeing new layers of momentum where I'm like, where was this 4 years ago? Where now I'm seeing people tag other people in Facebook posts, really share our content or add it to their own playlist. And it goes back to that same thing. When I sit down, I want to think about less about the external things that we all sometimes, how well will this do? How great will I look on camera? How powerful,
how many times
my
I scratch
philosophical,
my face because it's itchy.
All this different stuff. When what it really comes down is the people watching don't care about any of that stuff. They care about the value that you're delivering. So you're exactly right. Really helping, really providing value, and that'll build momentum. Do that year after year after year after year, and all of a sudden it creates the big mo. John Maxwell, Laws of Leadership. That big mo hits. We're seeing this happen with our book, YouTube Secrets. When you do a book launch, and you know this, you just work your face off, like 24/7 to get the word out. But we learned this from some publisher friends of ours. They said, what is the best way, to echo the David Ogilvy quote, what's the best way to launch a successful book? Write a good book. that was like,
mic drop.
I was like, man, King Solomon here. I mean, there's some wisdom, because great things like Seth Godin, the fame, such a marketing voice, always just say like great, remarkable things get talked about. It's something that gets shared because it's truly good. When we wrote YouTube Secrets, then how do you write a good book? And you would know this as well. We declared on camera, just like I told you, we held up a vlogging camera in 2015, and we said, this is the vision, because I have a co-author, Benji Travis. This is what we're going to do. Book is coming out in 2016. That's on the internet. We declared it. And then it wasn't until 4 years later, because we wanted it to be right and not rushed. We got to different parts where we just thought it wasn't quite as strong as it needs to be. And we also put the brakes on, I think, with there could be procrastination breaks, but there also could be it's not ready yet breaks. And it was probably a mix of the two. But nevertheless, so much, one of the reasons why it's a great book is because blood, sweat, tears, time, pain, rewriting, interviewing people, testing the theories, doing it all went into it. And that kind of takes us back to that idea of there really is no shortcuts. There's smart cuts, but there's no shortcuts around doing the actual work and providing real value.
I think that's a really good point, Sean, because a book is a book. Like the book is going to sit there, particularly because it's not just an ebook, it's a book. I think about books as like, yeah, that might be on someone's shelf 2 decades from now. No blog post I wrote is going to be on someone's screen 2 decades from now, as far as I can tell. And, blogs can afford to be okay. And I realized when it really started to take off, you hit 1 million views or whatever, you're like, oh my gosh, now what? And it's like, I can't fail. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Doing a whole lot of not so good blog posts got me to writing a few good blog posts, and the internet sorts that out. They determine what goes viral and what doesn't. People do, not you. And I guess the same is true in vlogging, right? And YouTubing, you get to the point where you throw 100 videos up and those 2 or 3 are going to provide disproportionate results and disproportionate help to people.
Exactly. It is definitely a volume game. And I would encourage people with that to be less concerned with one output and more concerned with a multiplicity of outputs, let's say 20 uploads for the 2 or the 3 that break through, because that is not only what you may not know, you probably won't. We had a viral video, nearly 3.3 million views, I think. It was called How to Get Free Things on Amazon, and that is a very provocative title, but it was just this one niche video. I quickly shared it, didn't overthink the production, and it just took off, and I never would have saw it coming. And some of the videos that I've obsessed on, invested money into, B-roll, creativity, sometimes have sat there and they haven't been the ones that have broken through. It's the commitment to the process and not, the process of creating the content, to the journey, and not the precipice of the mountain, right? To not just think it's about a destination, but it's about serving people and learning as we go in the process and really loving that process. I think trying to fall in love, I know this sounds like work, but trying to fall in love that once you will overcome the fear of video and camera and the technical side, and it'll eventually be like second nature to you. I want to encourage leaders, using Microsoft Word or using like Excel. I don't know if people use those anymore. Now it's like Evernote, Google Docs, but growing up, those were like normal skills. Like we all have to learn how to do, we all have to know how to use the phone. You know what I mean? Like as we were growing up, we had to learn these skills. I truly believe that social media and online video are actually becoming just new essential skills, not to be like a master of the famous YouTubers, but to be able to just know how to just communicate clear and effectively and use your phone and hopefully look at the little tiny lens that's hard to see and not yourself so that you're making eye contact with your audience. Like those are just things you learn as you go, but this stuff is not slowing down. This train is speeding up. John Maxwell just wrote a good book called Leadership. And one of the stats that LinkedIn Learning discovered was that most modern jobs, every 3 years, you'll have to relearn 30% of your job.
Oh, that's very true.
30% of your job's
I'm thinking even about video. I mean, we started as a video church, and that was very, very new for me a decade ago. And now there's hardly a week where I don't do video of some kind. And it used to be like, 38 takes and like, oh gosh, can the crew stay just a bit longer? And now it's like, 3 minutes, you're done. And you're a lot more forgiving. And I think because video is much more ubiquitous, you see it everywhere. People kind of expect that raw feel to it. And actually, is that somewhat, this isn't in the list of questions, but just thinking about that, like there's sort of 2 genres. One would be super high produced, like almost like Hollywood, Amazon Prime, Netflix. Another would be not just a guy on his phone or a woman on her phone, and it's kind of raw and unedited. I guess both are legit genres. Like how many different genres would there be in video?
There's all kinds, and I think this information will be encouraging. There's actually 2 interesting case studies. Here they are actually. Yeah. One thing that's interesting to study is looking at Hollywood celebrities that have transitioned to YouTube. A lot of them have failed.
Right.
And so, and the reason they did is because they went into the new medium with the old mindset, Come on, they went into they tried to put some new wine in some old wineskins, and it didn't work. Now, some have succeeded. One that's doing great is Will Smith. He's got a lot of momentum, but his YouTube channel is it's kind of a hybrid. One of the reasons it's powerful is because he does speak raw to the camera, but he brings a level of production value that I'm sure some people love, but I would dare say it's a little overproduced. Another example of a recent celebrity that just showed up on YouTube out of nowhere was Jack Black, Jablinski. And he just started doing super raw stuff. You could just tell it came right out from his heart. His kid is into gaming. He kind of wanted to support him. No production at all, and just blew up, just crushing it. Now, we're talking about two heavy hitting celebrities here, but I think comparing the two things revealed something that people really resonate with: real, raw, authentic. And it's a proof of concept that it's not about the production value, it's about the content value. Why are people watching? Well, they're interested in him. They're interested in what he has to say. Yeah. And the real and the raw is definitely working. So yeah, I think that we've learned overproducing your content can actually be hurtful and not helpful. Let's put this even into back to that Trey Van Camp visit our church type of style video. What a lot of us as church leaders might think is, let's just get the perfect looking family and get the DSLRs out and make a polished video, versus like if it's real, raw, still thoughtful. By the way, it still needs like a good story. It still needs to communicate good information. It takes people on a journey. But if it's shaky and it literally is like you're walking in the parking lot and you're kind of seeing down the kids' wing and where you're checking your kids, people relate to that. And we have seen that is usually the most powerful content format right now for connecting with people. And it's happening time and time again. It's not to say there's not a place for the Netflix, Amazon Prime produced shows, but what we see happen every day is Netflix is investing billions in original content. And a lot of those shows are terrible and they don't succeed. They're playing a numbers game too, and they got some great ones. But what does that reveal to us? It reveals that you could invest millions of dollars into a show. You could have perfect lighting, the best cameras, a whole team supporting you, but it's the content that's going to matter. So I want to encourage people, get real and raw. And honestly, probably the more real and raw you are, the more you speak your truth, right? That you really just, I think as church leaders, I'm kind of glad we're going here, because there was this era, and it was kind of the Christian television era, and even a style of church leadership where there was a disconnection from the guy on the platform and the people in the pews. And that sometimes too, we built up false standards of maybe like, shoot, if I show people inside my house is messy. This is stuff that scares us as pastors, right? If they see my house, my kid does go crazy. You know what I mean? Like he did like just punch his sister in the face, but it's like, shoot, there's guilt on both sides, in the sense of, one, we may not have created a culture where you could be real. And you're like, shoot, my family needs to be in decency and order, so I can't, but that's what people relate with. Come on, like we all got issues, we all are in process. But then that balance of also not necessarily showing that much, or not trying to hide anything, but keeping up a professional appearance. And I don't really know what the answer is, but I definitely know that people are more resilient, or they got their sirens, their scanners can kind of just see through fake more than ever before, or just surface level stuff more than ever before. So if there could be any conclusion to this, it's that there is something deeply powerful about you being real, raw, authentic, of course, still honoring and still wise, but it's what connects with people. And I think there's a lot of leaders right now that are kind of taking risks. I mean, what are we doing if we're not taking some level of risks? No risk, no reward. Like, I believe it's Martin Luther of church history starts remixing bar songs, which seems so unholy, but it was something that was massively powerful at that time in history for connecting with people. And the religious were deeply uncomfortable with it, but there was some people who had the courage to be pioneers and to try something. And so I think that we're being invited to explore those that world with social media and YouTube as church leaders.
Yeah, Ein Feisteberg, right? A Mighty Fortress. That was a bar tune at one point. And, one of the guys who I think did this quite well, even maybe a little ahead of the curve, is Carlos Whitaker, Lost Wit. And he's included his family. He's had viral videos, of his son ended up on Good Morning America and the Today Show with some of that stuff, and has been very transparent about his life. Another couple that's doing a great job right now, I think, is Rachel and Dave Hollis. So you look at their videos, and speaking of production value, I mean, they already had platform. Girl Wash Your Face blew up, and it changed their life. But when they started their couples podcast, Rise Together, they were literally driving to an event and had the iPhone on the center console and recorded their video. And it was crazy because it was crappy audio. And then I heard her talk about it later, and she was like, yeah, our producer said you can't air this. And all of a sudden it's the #1 podcast on iTunes, and so you can't predict. But I think that reel and the veneer, and like even my kids, on my Insta stories, which is my favorite, they're like, Dad, you're an idiot sometimes, but that's you, right? And people want to connect with you. So this has been so helpful. Okay. Anything else on video? They want to ask you one or two more questions, but you've helped a ton of leaders today. Thank you, Sean.
The pleasure's all mine. Just super honored to be here. And no, I mean, I think that video it's kind of becoming almost trite, but I think as church leaders, we just need to not even like the internet, it was like the printing press, and then it was the radio, and then it was television, and we're living through the greatest communication shift in the last 2,000 years. But that is a fact. Yeah, we really are. The internet's changed everything, and then online video is sitting at the top of the social media mountain, right, as far as just distribution and reaching people. The implications, they have all kinds of different nuances, but if there was one takeaway, it was that I cannot sleep on this. I can't ignore this. I need to figure out how this is relevant for me and how I'm going to leverage online video for my organization so that I can accomplish the mission God has given me to accomplish.
Well, I think that's a good analogy too, particularly, at least in my head, where I'm like, do I really need to go video? It's kind of like somebody in the late 90s going, so this internet thing, is that going to be around for long? Or like social media, is that here to stay? Or what about this online church thing? Like that's going away, right? And it's kind of like saying, well, no, if you actually look at the stats and where people are, like video is going to be the thing. So you've had this rocket ride for the last 3 years where all of a sudden you're like, wow, we don't have rent money unless I do this well. What have been some keys to scaling for you?
So in order, and there's been multiple, but in order was to repeat even what we've said in the interview, was find something that's working, but then don't abandon it to move on to the next shiny object before you get it really working.
Right.
And so what I did was I first went into those first 2 months and had made some of that, recovered our initial income, but then I didn't slow down. So now it was like, I could have even settled there. That was an optional settle point. It could have been like, oh, cool. Now I have a baseline as a content creator. And I wouldn't even say that's bad. You need to know what God's called you to, what your personal ambitions, I believe, are planted there probably partly by the divine in the sense of 5 talents, 10 talents. So again, if settling, sometimes I think would be a wrong way to label something. Yeah. If that's your world to steward things. But I know for me, I've always felt, I'll even tell you this, what I realized was I was challenged after I initially started my YouTube channel, because my family, once my family's needs were met, I actually really felt with God, I was at a Y in the road to say, and I remember this clear as day, that it was like, okay, well, your needs are met, but what about the rest of the world?
Yes.
And I'm going to say something that's pretty powerful or challenging here, could be controversial, is that I actually think that if you stop at a place where just your needs are met, you're being selfish. Christians will say, I only need as much to meet my needs. I'm not saying they're bad people. I know they've got a good intent, but I actually believe they're under a limiting belief. Oh, well, you've got enough to meet your needs. Well, what about your neighbors? And as a calling to be an entrepreneur, you also are called to employ others who will be feeding their families. One of our family, our chief operation officer, they just adopted a child, so they're at 3 kids now. And she was in tears saying, you've given me, and I'm not trying to take the credit,
No, I get it.
Business has given them the opportunity to be able to care for that child, pay their bill. So that's one aspect. The impact of the business is more. Our church bought a building in this first year. Us as kingdom builders being able to just drop a check on that. So even as I got to a place, I thought, wow, we're living in Vegas. Cost of living's cheap. We're making enough. I actually realized I had to capture a bigger vision, because survival is level one, right, but thriving is past that. So, I mean, I was like, man, we got to pay my bills and feed my wife. But I needed to really capture a bigger vision. And that's kind of what I did first. I think that's a scale principle.
Yeah, dude, thank you for saying that. And you are dealing with something that God is dealing with me right now, because I think what's going to happen to at least some of the listeners, and maybe it's happening to some of you right now, is you got the side hustle. Or like if you would have said to me 7 years ago, hey, Carey, what are you doing with your life? I'd be like, well, I'm still going to be involved at my church, but for the most part, I'm podcasting, blogging, speaking around the world, writing books. I'd be like, no, what? And there's this weirdness that happens with like, this is way bigger than it was ever supposed to be. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I feel like I've got voices in my life right now that are like, no, dude, this is a calling. And it is far beyond your personal needs as a family. It's like you have responsibility to get a message out and to help leaders, and that this is as much of a calling as planting a church. And so I'm just struggling with that right now. Struggle was maybe more a year ago, but it's like it is all right to lean into your calling. And my big goal last year was let God determine size, which means if you're at 3 views, okay, God determines size. But, if you're at 7 million downloads or, 7 million views or whatever, that's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that is you and God isn't in it, that he may be using you to help people. And that's okay. That's really good. So leaning into this and that's awesome. Oh man. Well, I would encourage people to pick up YouTube Secrets. It's a good practical primer. And that book is available anywhere books are sold. Any last tips or advice that you want to share before we go, or even mistakes you made along the way? I mean, I think we've shared that fairly openly and transparently.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody listening is already this person, so I'm just kind of preaching to the actual choir. But I think that the best investment that you can make is in yourself. I mean, okay, obviously, like we got to invest in eternity and whatnot, but I think that as leaders, the best investment you can make is always in yourself. Lifelong leaders are lifelong learners. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir. They're here at this podcast an hour into it. They're still listening. Clearly, you're a leader, you're a learner, but having just that deep belief that everything is figure outable, and that you've got great podcasts like this and great resources that are out there, moving into a new vertical, like embracing video or social media, can be very uncomfortable. It's calling us out of our comfort zone. We have so many other things to do. You've got a million fires in your church right now. You've got like 4 staff members you need to talk, whatever it is. There's so much other stuff to do. It could be hard to not necessarily, to even think about having the time and the bandwidth to do this. But everything's figure outable. And just like at one point in your life, maybe you weren't going to the gym, and now you figure out how to do that with as busy as you are. At one point in your life, you didn't have kids. And then somehow you figured out how to still do what you're doing with kids. You can figure this out. But if you keep learning and investing in yourself, invest in the conferences and the books and the courses, and little by little, a little becomes a lot. Because Carey, what we're really getting ready for is 2025 and 2030, Yeah. And so sometimes we could be frantic, like reacting to this now. No, I just want to plant seeds now in my team with vision, in myself, expanding my thinking, being exposed to different, opportunities like this and new ideas, and then continuing to water those things. I want those seeds planted, then I want to nurture them. And even if it's on the back burner all 2019, like your bandwidth might be maxed right now, and there is massive opportunity, but you got some things to fix. At least you're nurturing it along. You're casting vision for your team, for your church, and you're moving in the right direction by saying, we got to figure this stuff out. Because if you start steering the ship that way now, then in 2022, you're going to be reaping rewards that you'll be even further behind if you just don't start moving in that direction right now. I'm empathetic. I understand that there's 46 things above the list right now that probably every leader has to do, but you got to figure out how to also integrate this social media and online video thing at a really high level. And by 2025, you could be that magician mom that's listening that somehow makes it to the gym and keeps her kids alive and actually gets them home from soccer practice and runs her Etsy shop. We're highly capable, but it's little by little, right? It's just learning those new competencies and skills, and we pick up speed and momentum as we go. Just to echo one last thing that says the same thing, leadership. It's this idea that the world is going faster. And I was reading the beginning of that new John Maxwell book, and he was saying in the 1980s, he was like, the world wasn't even kind of as crazy as it was now. But this podcast is not about whether that's right or wrong or healthy, because that's a whole nother conversation about how fast culture is going
Right.
and why we need to disconnect. And yes, you should go turn your phone off for a day, but that's not the conversation here. I think
Right.
that would be hedging. That would be kind of procrastinating and making excuses. The truth of the matter is that these are tools when used with wisdom, when used with discipline, when used with a smart strategy, when used not frantically, but in smart, calculated manners. And every leader listening can do this and embrace this, and it'll only mean reaching more people, going deeper with the people you're already connected to, greater financial upside, greater momentum and impact for your church, your business, your nonprofit. The future is forward. And so I hope this podcast has been encouraging, and I know that everybody listening can crush it if they start moving in that direction.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because one of the, I guess, final question is, has this peaked? Because I think back to blogging when I really started in 2012, and some people said, dude, blogging's dead. It's like, well, not really. Not for me, it wasn't. And then podcasting in 2014, I did get in a little earlier on that one. Podcasts have been around for a while, but we're enjoying a resurgence, and the interview format was unheard of in the church space. So we got that. But video hasn't even come close to peaking, has it?
Well, the way I'd answer that question is this. I'm in Las Vegas, adjacent to the great state of California. And on California, there's a beach. There's lots of beaches, and some of them include Newport Beach, California, Laguna Beach, California. Right now, if I wanted to go buy a nice home on the beach of Newport Beach, we're looking at, anywhere between $1 to $20 million to get it, probably $5 to $20 million to get started if it was in a good spot in Newport Beach and anywhere along the coast of California. Now, if we go back 50 years, I might have been able to pick up some real estate on that very beach for a couple $100,000. True?
Yeah, very true.
And so if I would sit here today and say, man, you know what, if I would have back in 2000 or 1970 bought a bunch of real estate, then today I would be, well, but it doesn't matter, Sean, unless you figure out how to time travel or teleport, that ship has sailed. But the truth is this, real estate agents are still working today. Transactions on houses are still working today. It's just real painful, man. It's just real
and
brutal.
the guy who bought at $5 million a decade ago is sitting on 15 today. It's like, maybe it's like that, the best time to plant an oak tree was 25 years ago. The second best time is today.
It's today.
Yeah.
That you summed it up. And so that's what I would say. I would say that what's going to happen is we just can't ignore these tools. Was it better to get in blogging or podcasting then? Sure. But nevertheless, that ship has came and went. What I would encourage then to be a little more specific, you're right though. I don't think the video ship has even completely sailed. Is the party over? I really believe this. The party is just getting started. It's still very young. So it still is underpriced real estate. Digital real estate, if you will. So I'd still say go all in. But even if someone happened to dig up this podcast 3 years from now, my answer would still be the same, because you just have to live life. Would you rather plant your church in the perfect location on the corner of the most busy street and have no competition from any other churches? Well, of course you'd rather do that, but then you're also going to be in the context of what today's reality is. So the sooner you move, the better. But it's always going to be a matter of adapting. And at some level, it'll be even a level of maintenance. Some of this stuff, it will be less about viral breakthroughs and a lot of crazy outlier things. It'll be a stabilization of the market. The market will stable out. It'll level out. But you'll still need to know how to use video and social to continue to communicate. And so I love that you asked that question, because wise leaders would ask, should I invest in this? You always are saying, should I use my finances, my time, my energy, and my team to invest in something? And if the ship has sailed, then maybe it's not the right timing to do the investment. I think that point has been dispelled, that the answer is yes, no matter what, to invest in this. Because one, it is early, but even if it wasn't, it's the reality of modern communication. And so you want to be where people are regardless. Not to keep this thing going, but just like every church should be very attentive to their Yelp reviews, their Google reviews, their Google listings, the SEO of their website. SEO, search engine optimization, was easier 5-10 years ago, but it's still just as relevant as it was then. It's just more competition. So it's like anything else. Encourage people to look for ways to be enterprising and creative in the midst of the ever-changing landscape of digital communications.
John, this has been super helpful and a little bit convicting. So this had better be the debut of my YouTube channel, or else I have a lot of explaining to do. So tell us about the book, where people can find you online too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. YouTube Secrets, available on Amazon, ebook or physical book, Amazon.com, and around the world on all of the Amazons. So it should be in Australia and India and natively to be able to buy it physically or digital, Canada, other places. And you could find me if you go to YouTube. You could just type in the words think and then media, think space media. And you can also go to YouTube and type in the word video space influencers with an ERS on the end, video influencers. And those two YouTube channels are just kind of like a free college university course on YouTube and online video. A lot of great content out there. Some of that content will lead people to other things we have, but there's a wealth of resources. And I would encourage people, that would be more than enough to feed on and implement for a year or two. Great place to get started. Think media and video influencers.
What's your most common or most used social channel? Is it Instagram, Twitter?
I love Instagram, but Twitter, I'm hyperactive. Sean Cannell, SeanCannell. I love Twitter as a communication way to talk back and forth with people, answer a lot of questions. And so Twitter would probably be the best place if somebody had a specific question.
Fantastic. You helped a lot of leaders, Sean. Thank you so much.
Carey, thank you for what you're doing, inspired by your work and your community, and really honored to be a part of the podcast today.